Business Express, and then on OS.
We know that a lot of you have questions about what has been taking place in Sudan, in particular when it comes to al-Fasher. So we're going to put those questions to our correspondent and get some answers for you.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
This week on People Fixing the World from the BBC World Service, we're not pulling our punches. It's all about life-saving decisions. We find out how medical technology and a unicorn are tackling some of the obstacles which lead to thousands of people dying every year while waiting for an organ transplant.
So this is what our clinical teams experience every day using the machine. That kind of thrill of a liver coming back to life. It is phenomenal to think that we're bringing life to something that's contained in what is essentially a very high-tech lunchbox.
And what are your spare organs? Which ones could you share?
Your mighty organs.
One kidney you can share.
I'm Myra Anui, and I'll be back with more on People Fixing the World right after the BBC News.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The former US Vice President Dick Cheney has died. He was 84. He served for 8 years under George W. Bush, who said he would be remembered as one of the finest public servants of his generation. Dick Cheney was widely seen as the chief architect of the so-called War on Terror, which included the conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq. Here's John Sudworth.
He would even, in later years, defend the use of some of the most controversial parts of that policy, the extrajudicial detentions, the waterboarding of suspects. He would say that all of that was necessary in the context of the time to keep America safe. Interestingly, of course, he became a fierce critic of President Donald Trump. I think it's extraordinary to think, after that remarkable political life and his career, that one of his last political acts was to vote for the Democratic presidential nominee in last year's election, Kamala Harris.
Voting is underway in the United States in a series of closely watched elections. In New York City, the left-wing Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani is running for mayor. President Trump branded the frontrunner a communist and endorsed one of his own longtime critics, Andrew Cuomo, who's standing as an independent. Mr. Trump has threatened to withhold federal funding from New York if the Democrat wins. This was Mr. Mamdani's reaction.
I will treat his threats as they deserve to be treated, which are the words of a president and not necessarily the law of the land. And too often we treat anything that he says by virtue of who's saying it as if it is already that law.
A typhoon has killed at least 26 people and displaced hundreds of thousands in the central Philippines. Typhoon Galmigay swept across the country with winds of over 130 kilometers an hour. It brought flash floods, trapping people on roofs or in their houses. Singapore says it plans to turn the former home of the city-state's founding father, Lee Kuan Yew, into a national monument. The decision follows a bitter dispute between his children over what to do with the colonial-era building since his death. This report from Anbarasa Netirajan.
Singapore's National Heritage Board said the single-story bungalow bore witness to pivotal events that marked the city-state's transition from a colony to an independent nation. An advisory body found the site to be of national significance, adding that it could be converted into a public space such as a heritage park if the property was preserved and acquired. Lee's eldest son, who stepped down as the country's third prime minister last year, says the government must decide what should be done. His two siblings wanted to be demolished as their father wished.
World News from the BBC. Sudan's military government is meeting to discuss how to respond to the loss of its last stronghold in Darfur to the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The talks follow a warning from the International Criminal Court that atrocities reported in al-Fasher could amount to war crimes. The RSF leader, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, has admitted some violations by his troops. A court in China sentenced 5 people to death for their involvement in a violent criminal gang carrying out online scams worth billions of dollars. It operates along the border with Myanmar. A total of 21 members of the Bai family were convicted of crimes including fraud and homicide. Britain's finance minister has indicated she'll announce tax rises in this month's budget, a major policy U-turn for the government. In an unusual pre-budget speech, Rachel Reeves blamed economic challenges that had worsened in the last 12 months and said everyone needed to contribute.
If we are to build the future of Britain together, we will all have to contribute to that effort. Each of us must do our bit for the security of our country and the brightness of its future. There is a reward for getting these decisions right, to build more resilient public finances with the headroom to withstand global turbulence.
The promise not to raise the main taxes was one of the Labour Party's flagship manifesto pledges in last year's general election. Parisians are being offered the chance to win a burial spot among famous people, including the French singer Edith Piaf, the author Oscar Wilde, and the Doors singer Jim Morrison. The city has launched a lottery, which will give the winners the chance to pay for repairs to gravestones, in exchange for being buried among the rich and famous. BBC News.